Good morning. We are at the midpoint in the 20th week of Ordinary Time in our church year. And today I would like to just briefly review, again, another one of the 7 capital sins, and that being anger. The church refers to anger in 2 ways. First, it says that in and of itself, anger does not have to be, or often is not, a sin. And the sin of anger occurs when the use of our intelligence, our reason, is left aside, and we give in to that serious passion of anger, which is precipitated in one way or another by a resentment, and that certainly is a sinful act on our part. And the reason the church says that this resentment can become one of the capital sins from which many other serious sins proceed is if we first do not reject the temptation, that resentment immediately, but give into it, and that then gradually or even immediately leads us into a direct and an intentional hatred for someone or some group. And that's the seriousness of the capital sin of anger. Now, its opposite virtue, obviously, is true love for another person or persons, and by that the church means that it's much more than just liking someone. It's willing the good of another or others because of who they are, equals to us as persons made in the image and likeness of God. Think in terms of Jesus' teaching about the Great Commandment, that the commandment is thus: we shall love the Lord our God with our whole hearts, souls, minds, and strength. And, he says, the second is like the first: you should love your neighbor as yourself. That as yourself is just as important for us as loving our neighbor, which goes far beyond, as I say, just likes or dislikes or anything akin to that. It's a understood and intentional respect for myself as a person created and loved by God, and that same respect that I have for myself, I extend to you and every other person, no matter who those persons may be, what the circumstances in which we find ourselves may be. And so, the obvious capital sin of anger, of course, is an offense against the 5th commandment of God. And another good way of understanding this commandment, as well as this capital sin of anger, is go back to the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 5, and read slowly, prayerfully, carefully Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. He addresses this and other serious offenses against God in that sermon. But be assured that if we're cultivating the virtue, the real virtue of charity and self-respect in our daily lives, it becomes much easier for us to reject that temptation to a resentment which can fester and turn into the capital sin of anger. May God bless you this week, and may these last days of the month of August be days of goodness and great advancement in the faith.